Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this joint webinar between Parallels and 10ZiG about simplifying your end user computing life. My name is Chris Marks. I am a principal outbound product manager here at Parallels, which means I spend a lot of my time speaking to customers and partners and technical partners, just like 10ZiG, about how to make solutions better, how to make our offerings more aligned to what customers wanting moving forwards. And that is one of the reasons for this webinar here today. Joining us is Ed Richardson from 10ZiG. Do you want to introduce yourself, Ed?
Yeah, my name is Ed Richardson. I am the head of technical services for 10ZiG US. I spend a lot of my time doing pre-sales with our customer base, dealing with our federal customers specifically, but also on the commercial side, architecting deployments and generally helping our customers to have a better experience with 10ZiG and with partners like Parallels.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed. So hopefully between Ed and I, we can take you on an interesting and informative journey on how our two solutions kind of work best together and what the advantages are and a little bit more besides. But before we do that, what I'm going to do is take a little bit of a step back. So Ed and I are both going to have a little bit of a conversation about what we see in the market in 2026, what's perhaps changed, what has influenced customers and partners in the last 12, 18 months, and what we think is going to happen moving forwards. So I'll hand over to you, Ed, to take us through some of this content, and then I'll perhaps chip in.
Yeah, definitely. So the changes in the market recently have revolved primarily around the cost and the complexity of licensing. As we've moved from 2025 into 2026, the market has contracted consistently, with companies either changing the way that they do business or leaving the business altogether. Enterprise vendors are driving pricing up, finding the right mix of licenses that work for you without generating a lot of unnecessary overhead. It's putting a lot of pressure on people's budgets. I don't know if anybody out there can relate to this, but departmental budgets are compressed more than they've ever been. The ROI proposition becomes more important than it's ever been. And now it's not just a matter of buying licenses, because those are now becoming subscriptions for most of us. You also are being pushed into now buying package SKUs that don't necessarily align with what you want to do, but rather include products that aren't even relevant to your use case, but a lot of times are what you have to buy in order to get the licenses for the products that you do care about. It creates confusion and additional complication with the challenges of managing the newly created hybrid workforces. After COVID, people moved into working from their homes. A lot of folks have become resistant to coming back into the offices, which means that administrative teams now have to manage those workforces both in and out of the office. This creates additional complexity around securing and complying with regulatory requirements around those remote workplaces. More time and effort on behalf of the admin team is what this all comes down to. And it combines to create massive overhead, not just in man hours, but also in terms of cost and the ongoing care and feeding for these hybrid environments that we've now built. And then finally, there's that big elephant in the room, the Windows 10 end of life. The Windows 10 end of life is probably the single biggest disruptor to this market in recent history, simply because of the scale of it, right? We've now had to take, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of seats, converting them all. And even with customers that have a significant plan for how to manage this, it has still created, just because of the scale, a lot of additional cost and management headaches, even for people that knew it was coming down the pipe, simply because of the overwhelming scale of the task. So these are some of the challenges that we face today together in terms of how we need to move into the new year and into the new market, really, that is today. All of these, however, do come together to create a significant opportunity. It's almost a perfect storm for moving away from the platforms that we exist in now and looking at new solutions where we can bring simplicity, flexibility, and security to the focus in the form of 10ZiG and parallels together.
Awesome, thanks, Ed. Yeah, and I'll kind of add to the Windows 10 kind of conversation. We have monitoring agents out there. If customers opt in, they will allow us to see what operating systems they're running. And although the number has gone down drastically, there are still customers out there operating Windows 10. No company operates an operating system that's end of life just for the hell of it. So it's obviously a challenge for customers to kind of move at the scale and the speed that they're required to move. And obviously, this is something that particularly you guys over at 10ZiG can help out very, very rapidly. So let's move forward a little bit and have a little bit of a different kind of conversation. Parallels had delivered a state of cloud computing survey. The survey itself was conducted in November. The results were produced in February. It was totally anonymous. So this wasn't a, hey, how amazing is Parallels kind of survey. This is a, okay, talk to me about what you were doing. No vendors were mentioned. No kind of content was put into this survey that allows us to kind of bash some other vendor some other way. It's a genuine look at what organizations are doing and what they're seeing. And we've just pulled a few of the questions out for the sake of this webinar. Okay, the first one should come as no surprise. The one on the left should come as no surprise. Most organizations, perhaps you listening today, will fit in perhaps one of these larger buckets. So it's like, okay, well, where are you running your stuff? And the majority of people are kind of settling somewhere in the middle, right? This hybrid multi-cloud kind of vibe. Plenty of people are saying they're on a single cloud vendor. Some people are saying they're on-prem only. And to be honest, those kind of organizations are the kind of organizations that are on-prem for a really good reason, whether it's data sovereignty or whatever it happens to be. The more surprising answer to the question is the stuff on the right hand side, because it's a much higher percentage than I anticipated, if I'm being totally honest. Are you looking at moving workloads from public cloud back on-prem? And it's actually a pretty large number here, right? Around 70% are either definitely doing that, or at least they're thinking about doing it. So this is a real shift away from, hey, we've got a cloud journey and everything's going to make it there, to a much more balanced approach about, hang on, we're now running the right workload in the right place for the right reasons kind of vibe, which, to be honest, should have been the approach in the first place, but it's what the hype cycle is all about. Okay. What we're also seeing a lot of is a shift to software as a service. Now, some organizations are saying that they're going past software as a service already, that AI is rewriting my applications on the fly. Well, okay, that's as may be, but the respondents to this survey are basically saying we are shifting to SaaS, and there's lots of reasons why they're doing that. Some of the reasons why are the application vendor is supplying my applications as a subscription. I can't buy a permanent license anymore. Some of it is it's easier for me. Some of it is easier for my application vendor. But the upshot is companies are shifting a lot of their applications to this software as a service. But bear in mind, not many companies are shifting all of their applications to software as a service. What does that mean? It means from an IT administrator who's delivering applications, it actually makes it potentially more complicated, because I've got applications delivered in multiple ways. I've got some applications delivered as SaaS, some applications installed applications, and I still have to worry about the same data security requirements that I had to worry about before. We'll get to that a bit later. The stuff on the right is basically saying how fast are you changing. And as you can see, kind of the majority of people are increasing their SaaS estate, but it's kind of, yeah, it's increased slightly, it's increased significantly. So over time, the use of SaaS applications is almost certainly bound to keep increasing. The day we get to 0 installed applications in most organizations, I think is a long, long way away. Looking at what's happened in the last 20 years in IT, things do persist. So we're going to have to deal with this fact that we've got applications delivered in different ways. And then we've got operational pain, right? So it's what are the biggest issues you see with your environment today that you're trying to solve? Too many resources, high cost, it's too complex. Those first 3 all relate to cost. Okay, so the biggest issues that companies are reporting that they have today with the existing way, the kind of virtualized kind of applications, desktops, that kind of stuff, is it's too difficult. It requires specialist resource here. I can't predict the cost. Excuse me. And then that is really where we're trying to focus. Okay, so both Parallels and 10ZiG absolutely hit the money when you're trying to optimize cost. And in actual fact, we've kind of put this slide in here just to make it absolutely crystal clear. Okay, so these 3 words are what we're going to talk about moving forwards. Simplicity, flexibility, security underpins both organizations. Both Parallels and 10ZiG are fully focused on this. And we'll see that just now.
Yeah, this brings forward a great point, because those 3 tiers that we looked at in that previous slide, all 3 of those, as Chris mentioned, focus on the specifics that 10ZiG and Parallels both combine to create a solution beneath. You know, this is the core architecture that comes along with the 10ZiG solution. And we find it also in great partners like Parallels, with the simplicity and the flexibility of the application delivery, how we deliver apps, where we deliver them, and then the security of the overall solutions. Now, talking from the 10ZiG end of things, simplifying the VDI experience specifically begins at the management layer. Thin clients are absolutely useless if you can't manage them and make them do what they need to be doing. So simplifying that management layer, creating workflows that actually make sense in the real world, this is the core competency that 10ZiG brings to the table. We prioritize day-to-day tasking in order to make your life simpler for the things that you have to do all day long, every day, so that your administrative staff isn't spending cycles trying to perform the same operations over and over again. We've worked through the UIs, the workflows, in order to minimize the number of clicks that are required in order to get to a particular target and be able to hit those user values, if you will, in order to keep your people working and functional. The creation of templated configurations allows us to bring that forward as well. Deployment for the 10ZiG ecosystem is touchless. Everything is done automatically for you. Workflows for deployment, for configuration, even for updates are all automated in order to allow you to spend more time concentrating on other aspects of the business. Remote access solutions that bring real-time change to your environment when it needs to happen. Trouble tickets get reported. You can immediately see what's going on right now and address it in real time. The combination of those attributes brings forward a powerful and consistent and easy to use environment that allows your workload to be deployed wherever it lives, whether it be on-prem, in a public or a private cloud, or even in an air-gapped network. I think from the Parallel side of things, the flexibility of deployment and consumption of those workloads is available to you. The ability to deploy, to manage these, to license them anywhere that they need to be, and to integrate them into your own network instead of forcing you into our ecosystem. And then the long-term sustenance of that environment, the predictability, the ability to manage the data, to control it, to manage everything from certificates to access controls, multi-factor integration, all of it under one roof brings together a perfect synergy of the two technologies.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly with that, Ed. From a Parallels point of view, we have one admin console to deal with no matter where the workload is in the back end. So we could be consuming apps from the public cloud. We can be consuming apps from kind of multiple hypervisors. We unify that in a single console, and that allows the applications we deliver to those users to essentially just be a list of icons. Because what we've got to remember is that we're in end user computing, which is a very specific branch of IT, which involves humans. So we are directly involved with humans here. They do not care where all those applications are coming from, and the fact that it's actually quite difficult to maintain consistency while we're going through all of this disruption and change that IT goes through. So delivering on these things in the way that both Parallels and 10ZiG do is important, because it maintains consistency for those normal humans going about their normal job. They know things are going to work tomorrow just like they did today. So having a bit more of a look at Parallels, I'm not going to go through too much detail, too much kind of marketing here. I'm just going to focus on a couple of things. Those of you on the webinar are perhaps 10ZiG existing customers, but you might be new to Parallels. I'll just give you a very quick intro. Parallels is probably best known in the market for the thing on the left, running Parallels Desktop, which is running multiple operating systems on Mac OS. This is totally not the conversation we're having today. Most of the conversation we're going to have today is focused around the second icon along, which is Parallels RAS. So this is delivering primarily installed applications virtually to an end user. And in this case, for this webinar, that is through a 10ZiG client, right? And then there's the thing on the far right called Parallels Browser Isolation. Remember back to what we said about things are shifting to software as a service. What Parallels Browser Isolation does is it delivers browsers only. So there's no underlying Windows operating system being delivered here. It just delivers a secure browser to that user. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit more in the following slides. So it's just those two things that we're really talking about in scope. So it's Parallels RAS delivering installed applications, and you've got the option of Parallels Browser Isolation delivering exclusively those SaaS apps. So I'm just going to talk to you about two new things. I could talk to you about a whole bunch of stuff that were released this year. Literally today, we have just released the tech preview for the new version of Parallels RAS 21.2. Those of you want to go and check that out, please feel free. I'm just going to pull out a couple of new things that we've got on the truck. The first, Parallels Browser Isolation Private Access. In the top left, I've represented that survey data. Okay, so 82% of companies are saying they're either slightly or significantly increased their SaaS software as a service estate. What is the impact of that? Well, potentially, you guys as customers could fall foul of the fact that when you virtualize your applications, right, and you might have been doing it for years, you're delivering desktops and applications to your end users. You may already be doing that with 10ZiG. You may already be doing it in a different way. You are, as a matter of course, securing your data, okay? Because your data is not leaving the data center. You're giving them an image to that endpoint device, and therefore you can manage what happens to that data. Are you allowing people to copy and paste? Are you allowing people to print it? If someone steals that device, or I lose that endpoint device, what's on the endpoint device? How do I have to behave? The shift to SaaS has opened that question again, because if I start delivering that software as a service application locally, it means the data is sent to that device where it wasn't before. So treat all of the browser tabs you've got in that local browser as an application, because that's basically what they are. And it's why, for example, your browser is going to take up the majority of resources on your kind of device, because you've got these multiple applications sitting in here. What Parallels browser isolation does is it brokers a remote browser to that user's local machine. So in the case of our partnership with 10ZiG, so I could be using the 10ZiG secure browser on my endpoint. When I open my software as a service application, it is not opening that software as a service application on the device. It's spinning up a remote browser instance. The remote browser instance is accessing the application, and then it's brokering effectively an image of that to my 10ZiG client. What does private access do? What's the green bit? The green bit is a shift from Parallels themselves running these containers of browser instances to customers running the containers themselves. And what that means is the data is wholly on the customer's network with private access. So rather than you subscribing to a service where you get an instance of a browser spinning up, you subscribe to a similar service, but now you can put the appliances inside your own network. And what that means is you can start making available internal web applications, which perhaps don't touch the internet, securely via this Parallels browser isolation method. Excuse me. So that's what private access does, right? I can download an appliance, I could install it on my network. When I spin up that software as a service application, it is brokered into my 10ZiG client, and the 10ZiG secure browser or any other browser you might want to put on that 10ZiG device then accesses that Parallels browser isolation instance. The data never touches the device. There's no risk whatsoever of that. So what does that kind of lead to? Well, this is your 10ZiG desktop, right? And what it means is some of the icons that a user might see on their 10ZiG desktop are coming from Parallels browser isolation, like we saw before. So these might be high secure applications that I want to guarantee there's no kind of attack vector, not just on the device, because 10ZiG has got that security perimeter already. Okay, it's kind of read only. So we're not only talking about the device here, we're talking about something else on that user's network that might be looking at this traffic. Okay, it eliminates that completely because the data isn't on that network. I'm just brokering the connection. I'm just saying an image of what's there. So that's on my desktop. I might have traditionally delivered applications on my desktop as well. I've got AVD clients. I might have W365. I might have AVD delivered locally. And yeah, I can manage the icon with Parallels as well. That's all doable. And then I've got my 10ZiG applications as well. They're all kind of sitting there. They're all on my 10ZiG thin client. And the majority of these applications do not have any data on the network where the user sits. That data is either sitting inside that SaaS provider or it's safely inside a third-party data center. So this is where Parallels browser isolation comes in, particularly Parallels browser isolation private access that we launched earlier this year. So to move onto Parallels RAS, so Parallels RAS, as we said, is delivering installed applications, right? So the kinds of things it can deliver on the right-hand side, I can deliver a shared session host, I can deliver physical PC connections, really popular in education, where I might have a set of kind of GPU heavy physical machines that I want to give to a bunch of users, for example. I can do VDI, so I can do single session desktops. I can directly integrate with AVD. That's using native Microsoft integration to deliver AVD. I can also deliver local apps. So for example, I could, rather than publish an application, I could send a URL in an icon. And when a user double clicks on that URL in 10ZiG, what it's actually going to do is open the default browser that's been configured for that 10ZiG client, and it will then launch that URL. Why is that useful? We go back to this icon thing, right? A user might have a list of 10 icons, and an application is migrating from an installed app to a software as a service app. I want to try and maintain the icon, so all I do is I just alter what the icon does. So rather than launching an application inside Parallels RAS, I can now directly launch a URL that might be launching Parallels browser isolation, for example. So built into Parallels RAS, it's a single license. Everything you see on that screen in the middle kind of red section there, that's all included, right? So I've got a web portal is built in. I've got load balancing. I've got secure access. I've got multi-factor authentication built in. I can also integrate multiple different methods of multi-factor authentication as well. I can run on any hypervisor or cloud. I'll talk a bit more about that in just a second. Single sign-on, I've got SAML, I've got multi-tenancy, I've got a whole load of stuff that's not on there to talk about as well. And built-in auditing, monitoring, and reporting, and as we said before, a single management portal. And that opens us to the full kind of gamut of technology that's available from 10ZiG to deal with all these different use cases. Did you want to talk a bit more about the use cases here, Ed, or do you want to leave that for a bit later?
No, let's talk a little bit about that, because one of the things that I really wanted to focus on in here, and this is a great slide because it does represent all of the different types of compute and platforms that are available in both 10ZiG and in Parallels. But one of the things that I really wanted to point out here is in the fact that just as Parallels is all inclusive with their product, 10ZiG is the same. You know, when you have your 10ZiG equipment, you have both the Parallels RAS application and that 10ZiG secure browser, which will enable you to reach the Parallels ecosystem in whatever manner suits your workload the best. Whether it's delivering those local applications or delivering the Parallels RAS apps, or whether it's the secure apps in the PBI, all of this is available within that same 10ZiG client simultaneously, so that you can have a desktop full of varying different workloads, to include your AVD desktops as well, or your Windows 365 workloads. All of this can be done in a single pane of glass through the 10ZiG ecosystem, which just complements the processes that Parallels brings to the table. Now, the left side of the slide kind of represents some of the different form factors that 10ZiG offers out here, whether it is for mobile users, whether it's for desktop users, all the way from basic use cases up to AutoCAD, Aegis mapping, whatever GPU rendered applications you might need to have. The all-in-one form factor that works well in hospital and medical environments, or our repurposed software that brings forward the ability to reuse those Windows 10 devices that we were talking about at the beginning of our call today. All of these are available, and all of them have the same capability to reach out into that Parallels environment and bring all of those applications down in order to create a better environment for your user base to work in. The management aspect of this comes along with that ecosystem. We have the same multi-tenancy application within our new 10ZiG Manager appliance that's just recently been released within the last few days. That the web console that comes along with it now allows all of our processes to be complementary at even a higher level to the Parallels processes, in that we have the same synergy of, SSO, multi-tenancy, all of those things that come to the table in both products in order to make your delivery better.
Awesome, thank you. So the second thing, that was the first thing. The second thing I want to talk to you about is this thing called a customer provider framework. So what is happening, and we didn't really mention it too much at the beginning about the market background. An awful lot is changing in our industry. vendors in our industry have made decisions to focus on particular markets or particular segments of markets, and that means that customers that weren't in their vision of what their own company looks moving forwards, customers have felt a little bit disenfranchised with some of the previous kind of providers they were looking at. And one of the big changes that's happening is around the hypervisor. We have lots of customers coming to us, hey, I used to have this solution here. I'm looking at moving. Do you support this? Do you support that? Do you support this? And we're getting a lot of requests. But the challenge is we're getting requests for a lot of different things. And that presents us with a little bit of a challenge, okay? But it's where the custom provider framework comes in. So just to give you a bit more of an insight, from Parallel's RAS point of view, it's worth stating this. We will support Parallel's RAS running on any hypervisor. We have plenty of customers who are running on cloud platforms and hypervisors, big ones, that are not on this slide, okay? So that's the first thing I say. So from a support point of view, it's not really an issue. But from an automation point of view, we have a process where we install what's called a provider. The customer configures the provider, and then it can automate using native APIs of that backend platform. What does that mean? I can scale up, scale down. I can do template-based image management. I can do version control. I can kind of create VMs, kill VMs, that kind of stuff. Automation of my environment is possible using what Parallels calls providers, okay? What does the custom provider allow you to do? The custom provider allows you to, it gives you a framework to connect and automate to any platform that has an API, okay? Literally anything. So I can start looking at Zen. I could look at Virtuoso, I could look at Proxmox, KVM, I could look at XCP ping, I can look at Zen server and automate Parallels RAS on those backends. And this is where we're talking about flexibility, okay? So Ed's just talked about flexibility at the front end. So all these client options that 10ZiG has to maximize your existing investment, to make it easy for users. And this is automating at the back, right? It's making it really, really flexible. So you can run these workloads anywhere. Why is that important? It's because change is inevitable, right? Because we can support any of these backend platforms and we can automate now for any of those backend platforms, you can change your mind. You can change from one to the other, and you know that you're going to be able to still deliver the services your users need. So it's important. And the custom provider framework has been released this year. You are welcome to go try that out. You will need to do some configuration. As I've said, it's a framework rather than a provider itself, but please talk to us about how to make best use of that. So those are the two things I wanted to talk to you about, specifically about Parallels. Parallels Browser Isolation Private Access really helps you secure your SaaS apps. Works beautifully with 10ZiG. I know Ed's been using it this week. And then the custom provider framework gives you the flexibility. It gives you the options at the back end. So now we're going to move, and Ed's going to talk a little bit more about modernized thin clients. So I'll hand back over to Ed again.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. So yeah, modernized thin and zero clients. I know that we have a lot of 10ZiG customers that are already on the call today, and we do appreciate all of you, but I know that there's probably are some folks who are Parallels customers who may not necessarily be familiar with who we are and what we might do. We bring modernized thin and zero client computing to the table with no hassle repurposing software and free management. I'm going to try to move these slides here. Let's see if this works for me. There we go. All right, so thank you. It wasn't moving for me. All right, so 10Zig's security posture. A few of the things we've talked about already on some of the previous slides, but I wanted to point out a few things here that are definitely pertinent to recent changes in the client market. One of those is the single vendor strategy that 10ZiG brings to the table. You know, with security becoming an ever more important piece of the pie today, going back to those hybrid workloads, offsite workloads, et cetera, it's more important than it ever has been before for you to have a single point of contact and a single, how would I say it, a single place to go to when you need assistance with your products. Other vendors are leaving the hardware space and they're moving into software-only offerings. Endpoint and vendor sprawl are getting worse than they ever have been previously. Vendors are leaving the market. When you have a problem arise, and you're going to have it, it's going to happen at some point. But when that happens, you want to have one place to go to. You don't want to have to go and see all of the places. And you don't want to have to go to all of the vendors in order to get an answer and have finger pointing between one and the other. Another piece of this is lower endpoint costs. Lower endpoint costing allows us to bring in more activity, more ability to change and to advance in what we're doing. One of those is brought about through our repurposing software, the ability for you to continue to use that Windows 10 hardware that you've had, that you own, some of which might even still be under warranty, right? A lot of those devices have 3 to 5 year warranties that you still are in use of. And now you have the opportunity to continue to use those products with the 10ZiG repurposing solution. One of the biggest pieces, though, that comes out of this is the consistency of the user experience. And as Chris mentioned earlier, the consistency for your end user base of being able to deliver applications and workloads from different clouds, from different locations, from different parts of the Parallels ecosystem to the desktop is added into by having a consistent user experience across all of your 10ZiG equipment too. One of the places where we see this really consistently, I can speak, is through hoteling users. Hoteling users who move from desktop to desktop are some of the most challenging people to support. And one of the reasons why is because they expect the same user experience regardless of where they go. If I'm in New York, if I'm in London, if I'm in Rome, I expect to have exactly the same delivery of the same applications in the same way so that my workflows don't get altered based on where I happen to be at geographically. And this allows us within the 10ZiG ecosystem to deliver all of those applications on a consistent basis every time to every place in every desktop. The same consistency of deployment that you get out of the 10ZiG manager allows you to create that experience for the end user to the point where, from a visibility standpoint, they won't know where they are because it's the same every time in every place. One of the big difficulties here is the complexity of those types of environments, being able to deploy and provide all those workloads to the user base. And what we do at 10ZiG is we remove that complexity, again, through leveraging automation and simplicity of design. We've taken significant amounts of time just investigating workflows in order to make those as easy as they can be for the users and for the technical staff that are on the back end. We don't want your administrative teams to have to do extra work, because when they do, all that does is increase your overall total cost of ownership, and it creates headaches for the admin team unnecessarily. Anything that we can automate makes their lives more simple and makes your end users' lives better, because they spend less time talking to the help desk and more time concentrating on their own jobs, which is what they should be doing in the first place. Finally, maintaining that consistency. Oops, I went one too far. Maintaining that consistency of the devices so that we don't have endpoint sprawl across your environment, and so that the devices stay compliant, they stay bracketed into their own environments, and we don't have any configuration changes in an unauthorized manner, are all managed again and maintained by that 10ZiG manager. That consistency and automation of the workflows allows us to ensure that every device is configured according to your plan all of the time. Somebody tries to make an unauthorized change to a device, it's reported back to the admin team and changed back into that compliant configuration. There we go, now it changed. Perfect. So one of the things I want to bring some focus to here is that orange line at the top. Built for your Parallels environment, not the other way around. This is significant for us because one of the things that 10ZiG has always tried to do is to fit ourselves into your use case, not trying to change you to fit ours. I don't know if anybody's ever had experience. I've worked in MSP for a long time before I came to 10ZiG, and I don't know if anyone out in the audience has ever had an experience where you've had to try to shoehorn a solution into your network because the vendor said, don't worry, this is going to work for you, and it's going to solve your problems. You know, if you've ever had that experience, sometimes it works out kind of okay, sometimes it's a train wreck, right? At 10ZiG, we don't expect you to make changes to your network in order to make our products work. Our products are flexible in the same way that Parallels is flexible in order to help you to deliver the workload that you need to deliver to your users in the way that it needs to be delivered. One of the biggest pieces of this with our PeakOS and our repurpose operating systems is through the NOS-P modality. This is a new offering from 10ZiG. This is another one on the new list. The NOS-P modality allows us to deliver Parallels-based workloads in a zero client look and feel. So the desktop provides access to absolutely nothing for the end user except for what you want them to be able to access through their Parallels environment. This keeps your users from moving off task into trying to perform things other than what they should be doing. But more importantly, it opens you up to the most secure, the most functional, the most versatile aspects of the Parallels environment and of the 10ZiG endpoints. Our dedicated Ceph secure browser allows you to run those PBI environments that Chris was talking about earlier and provide those in a secure fashion that the end user can't get out of in order to ensure that your secure applications are delivered securely with no potential for any of that data to move sideways outside of the controlled application. We also offer Windows 11 IoT endpoints. If you do have a specific requirement or a specific compliance requirement that requires a Windows platform, we can provide that to you as well with the same feature sets as all of our other products. And going back to the repurpose software once again, those are all available for your own existing x86-based hardware. We're going to change. All right, thank you. So the Parallels Ready 10ZiG stack, you know, we've talked about this, and I don't want to belabor this too much because we've gone through a lot of this, but these are all designed specifically with our Parallels applications in mind. Parallels Ready hardware. All of our hardware is designed specifically to work within your Parallels environment. Everything from very basic use cases. I'm talking about task workers, you know, basic Excel spreadsheets, Word document preparation, all the way up into AutoCAD, your mapping, reading x-rays for hospital and medical environments, grid-enabled workloads. All of those are supported within the 10ZiG software or hardware stack. And additionally, the mobile endpoint users as well are well served through our laptop. All of our operating systems are vetted for Parallels as well. They're all designed specifically to integrate with Parallels ecosystem in order to give you the most secure and the most functional environments that you can have. And then the repurposing software, again, coming back to reusing and providing new life for those Windows 10 environments that you've largely had to think you were going to abandon, but now you have the opportunity to add new life and new functionality into those. Our hardware stack, this is a group photo just to give you an idea. If you look on the far left, that's that basic workload device. Then we move over into the desktop, the all-in-ones, the laptops, and finally on the far right, that grid-enabled device. So it doesn't matter what your workload looks like, regardless of what you're doing, where you're doing it, 10ZiG can always serve your use. And then, of course, the repurposing software, that's available to work on anything x86. It'll work on your Dells, your HPs, your iGel devices, any of your third-party hardware that's running around out there. We can give you this on a free basis so that you can test it out. And our 10ZiG manager. And I'm going to spend a minute just to talk about this. We've just released, and this is our new list, right? Chris was talking about some of the new offerings from Parallels. This is the new from 10ZiG. We've just released our version 6 appliance-based management console. That new 10ZiG manager now has the ability to support multi-tenancy completely. So for any of our customers out there who might have multiple facilities, or our MSP customers that want to provide complete isolation for each one of your customer environments, even our, like I say, our multi-location customers who have different admin teams running those different facilities, you now have complete separation of duty, complete role-based access into each one of those facilities in a unique basis for the team that administers the clients in those locations. This is still the same free product that it's always been. There's never been any licensing cost around the 10ZiG manager, and there never will be. This is a value add that 10ZiG brings to the table in order to enhance the productivity of your end users and your administrative teams and the functionality of your 10ZiG products. Because as I mentioned at the outset of this, thin clients are worthless if they can't be managed. And so this gives you the ability to automate, to auto-configure, to auto-deploy, and to take the management overhead out of the equation for your admin teams so that they can focus on supporting your end users, and your end users can focus on doing their jobs like they should be. As has always been the case with everything 10ZiG, we provide, did it again, we provide free demos for all of our offerings. Everything that 10ZiG makes is available as a free demonstration product. You can get hardware, you can test drive our repurposing software. Our 10ZiG manager is available. If you want to download the manager, you just go to 10zig.com/manager. Very, very easy to do. We're trying to make things simple for you here. But free demos are available for all of our products. If you reach out to our sales teams, we can get you that demonstration equipment. We have SEs who can walk you through the deployment process, get you set up, get you connected to your Parallels environment, and get you all the way up and into production without any costing until you're ready to move forward into that purchase. Now this is I think one of our final slides here, but this is a really good representation of the synergy between 10ZiG and Parallels. Simpler administration, lower overall cost, consistent user experience, automation, and flexibility. These are the things that both 10ZiG and Parallels bring directly to your table so that they can be in front of your users, make your life and your functionality better, decrease your total cost of ownership, and create a better compute environment regardless of where it's deployed, what type of workload it's deploying, and where you locate it. Chris, did you want to go into that a little bit further?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's important to understand this entire slide is a joint set of statements. So all the way through from the top, as both hopefully myself and Ed have communicated already, and this slide kind of brings it home, is if you're looking for a simpler administration, you cannot really get any more simple than having a single console to control your kind of endpoint devices, a single console control your application delivery, and the knowledge that these two organizations are working together in the back end to deliver this integration to you. So it doesn't get any more simple than that. And the two organizations, Parallels and 10ZiG, are genuinely working together here to make life more simple for you guys as customers, and obviously as potential customers here as well. From a lower cost point of view, that is proven for both our organizations. The market is busy. As Ed said, as you've said, there's a lot of change in both our kind of little segments of this market. And we prove ourselves every day about that kind of stuff. So yeah, from a cost point of view, absolutely no questions. From a consistent user experience point of view, we have both talked about this fairly extensively. Okay, it's important. Humans are what sets end user computing apart from most of the other aspects of kind of IT we could be involved in. And humans do not take kindly to change. Humans will log support calls, which creates cost. So it's important that we consider that. It's important we consider how those kind of individuals interface. And then, automation, we are geared. There's a whole bunch of automation built in already to both our platforms, but it's simple things like, for example, Parallels RAS integrates directly with Microsoft FSLogix, for example. Not only can I install that via the Parallels GUI without having to touch FSLogix itself, there's no configuration, no manual configuration needed. The entire thing, every single setting is in the Parallels RAS console, for example. Upgrading the software, that can be done automatically, and you can do that on a schedule. So it's these things that help administrators basically have an easy life, because IT guys are lazy, right? And that's really where that comes into play. And hopefully, if nothing else, if you remember nothing else from what Ed has said, endpoint flexibility, you can see basically we can cover virtually every single base there. So I think it's important that all of these statements here are from both organizations. Yeah, it's not coincidence that both logos are on here. Yeah.
Definitely not. And I appreciate the fact, Chris, that you bring up repeatedly the human being aspect of this, because not only are human beings the most unpredictable portion of our program here, right? But they also are the most important. We exist to serve our user base, whether it's 10ZiG and Parallels users in the form of technical people, or whether it's the technicians supporting those people who are the end users in their organizations. We exist to serve those people, and making their lives better, making the administrators' lives better, the perfect synergy that Parallels and 10ZiG bring to the table in terms of making that happen at a high level is just magic. This is what we're here for. This is what we live for. And working together as two companies with a common vision and a common goal for our mutual customers it enriches the lives of everybody that it touches.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed. So if you want to find out a little bit more, I've got some questions. I'm going to try and get to the questions in the 5 minutes we've got left. But the survey, the parallel side of the survey that we presented is on that QR code. If you guys want to follow that URL, it will take you there. We've also got a press release, a joint press release from both 10ZiG and Parallels that's hosted on the 10ZiG website there on the right-hand side. Feel free to go there and do a little bit more digging, find out a little bit more information about the relationship. You would basically have Ed and I's names and job titles. You can search us out and message us directly on platforms such as LinkedIn, that kind of stuff. That's absolutely not a problem. But please follow up. If you've got any questions, don't leave those questions. Ask us. If we can't answer them, and I've already seen there are a couple of questions I don't necessarily know the answers to, we will get the answers to you. So please ask them. So yeah, I'll leave that slide on there so you can have a look at the QR code. Now, this is from David. Will there be a version of no OS that supports parallels? Well, it's all a question of scale. Maybe in the future, if it makes sense for us to do so. What I would say is I can have a first-class citizen delivered via a web browser. So any platform that's going to run a web browser is going to be able to run a parallel session. That's basically as far as I go.
If I might speak to that for just a moment as well, our 10ZiG NOS offering, I think you may be referring to that as our no OS, and that is what NOS is short for, is no OS. That NOS P modality that I referred to in one of the earlier slides, that's built into our PeakOS thin client and our repurposed software, is the current iteration of the Parallels 0 client or Parallels NOS client. So that NOS P modality is available in the desktop applet. If you look on the modality dropdown, there is a NOS P in the latest version of our firmware that allows you to switch it over into that NOS configuration within the PeakOS client. You can switch between, if you're already an existing NOS customer, over to that PeakOS firmware. You can reflash those devices to it, and you can leverage that NOS P modality currently. Moving forward, we will likely provide a specific NOS client at some point in the future. I don't have a timeline exactly on when that will be right now, though.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed. Hopefully that's answered your question either way, David, whether it's 10ZiG, NOS, or no OS. David has asked, do you provide a long-term trial to test and prove out the platform? Very possibly, David. Yeah. So for standard, you can just rock up to the website and get a 30-day trial. You can just do that straight away. If you need to access for a particular opportunity, we'll reach out to you and put you in touch with the account team. So the account team manage trial licenses. And obviously, if you have an opportunity that requires something that isn't a standard 30-day trial, let's have a conversation, and it's normally a positive answer to that. But I'll get an account manager to reach out to you, David. Balzas, I'm trying to solve a problem where I log out by moving away from an integrated camera. Now that is a really interesting use case. I'd like to talk to you about that use case. Do we do it today? I honestly don't know if we could do that today, but I'd like to talk to you about it. So I'm going to reach out to you separately about that, because that does sound interesting. We previously tested this is Spencer, when a user left their desk, a new user came on, they could potentially log in as the previous user. Yes, an improvement has been made there. We now have policy which you can set, which does not store username. Also, we have one that does not store password. So I can get the guys to reach out to you there, Spencer, as well. And I think that is the end of our questions, which does bring us up to about 30 seconds left. So that's perfect timing, Ed. Look at that, aren't we great?
Absolutely.
So we'd like to end this webinar with a thank you for attending. We know your time is valuable. We keep talking about humans. You are humans of which we talk. And an hour of your time is important. So I hope you found it at least informative, at least useful. You found out a little bit more about both Parallels and 10ZiG and the relationship we have and how we work so well together. So thank you very much for your time.